Hi, my name's Andrew Morpeth. In this video, I'm going to take you through what you need to know as a user if Microsoft Teams is going to be replacing your phone system. Let's take a look. Alright, so first we'll look at a bit of an overview of Microsoft Teams, some of the need-to-know stuff. Then we're going to really go into a deep dive on phone system replacement capability, because that's really what this presentation is about. We'll also tack on the end some stuff about online meetings, because they're going to be useful for most people, I would imagine. Microsoft Teams packs a heck of a lot of capability. From persistent and group chat, it provides a chat-based workspace, online meetings, which we'll cover a little bit, the meet and the sandwich, the calling and phone system replacement, which I've said we're going to focus on for this video, and also just built-in Office apps. Okay, so why would you use Microsoft Teams as a phone system replacement? Well, for one, it allows you to work from anywhere on any device. You can make and receive phone calls to and from your DDI phone number, so you're no longer tethered to your desk like a phone is, a traditional phone. Okay, and it gives you enhanced calling between your staff and other people that are using Microsoft Teams. So to give you an example of that, we can do video calls, we can also do screen sharing and other capabilities like this, which we can't do across a traditional phone. And obviously there's a lot of other future benefits if you're tackling this as a phone system off the bat. And some of those I alluded to in the slide before. So you can download mobile apps for the iPhone as well as Android. There's also a desktop app which will run on Windows and Mac. If you don't have either of those at hand, you can also access Teams via the web browser by going to teams.microsoft.com. And logging into Teams is just logging in with your same username and password that you would use for any other service within your business. If you've got Teams installed on your desktop, it may be running in the background. So what you want to do is just open up the task tray and just check that it's not already running. If it's running there, then that's fine. If you get calls or other chat notifications, things like that, they will actually still pop up if it's running in the background. If it's not running at all, you may need to start it for the first time. You'll find it in your start menu just by searching Teams. If you haven't got it at all, you may need to install that or talk to your IT department about getting that installed for you. So I'll be referencing Teams settings a bit, so we'll just cover off how you get to that in the desktop app. So first, select your profile picture at the top there, click settings, and that will take you into the settings page. Now the first thing you'll want to do whilst we're in settings is set up an audio device and potentially a camera. So to do that, from the devices tab, you've got this audio devices menu here. So what you want to do is you want to select a headset from the top drop down or other audio device. Hopefully you're using a Microsoft certified headset, and if you do, it probably has auto configured itself. Now once you've selected that headset at the top, it's going to automatically configure your microphone and speakers which are associated to that headset. But if for any reason you wanted to use different devices, you can simply use the drop down selectors for each of those as well. Something really important to set is your secondary ringer, because if you only have a headset, the ringtone when an incoming call comes in will only be in your ear. If you put your headset down or turned away from the desk, or aren't within earshot of your headset, you're probably not going to hear that ringing, right? So if you set a secondary ringer, what that's going to do is allow your PC speakers to ring at the same time, just to ensure that you do hear that incoming call. If you have a camera, you can choose to set up a camera. A lot of laptops have multiple cameras, so you just need to make sure you've got the correct camera set up. A core capability of Microsoft Teams is this idea of presence. It is a visual indicator of your availability. And so a lot of people have probably seen this sort of thing in the likes of Facebook Messenger, Skype for Business if you've used that. The idea is the same across all of these apps, and Teams is no different. Now you can set this manually, again from your profile picture. You can select the current status, which here you can see on busy. Just select the arrow to the right hand side of that, and you've got some options here. So you've got available, you have busy. You can set do not disturb. The difference between do not disturb and busy is that that will actually stop incoming chat notifications and calls. We'll go straight to voicemail if voicemail is turned on. You can set be right back as an indicator to people that you've stepped away but you're going to be back very shortly. Or you can appear away if you want to essentially be hidden. The reset status will basically set you back to the automatically determined present state. And so a little bit about that. So presence can be automatically set as well as manually, so you don't have to remember to always be setting your current status. That will be handled somewhat on your behalf. So for example, when you're on a call, you'll go into the busy present state, but you'll also be marked as in a call. Likewise, if you have any Outlook meeting invites, your presence is going to get set to busy in a meeting. When you switch to presenting, so for example, PowerPoint presentation, and you go into full screen presenting mode, you're automatically going to go into do not disturb. And that's great as well, because that's going to stop those incoming calls and chats and ensure that you're not disrupted whilst you're in that presentation. When you step away from your desk, after approximately 5 minutes, you'll go into away automatically, or if you lock your machine, you'll go away immediately. Some other present states that you may see along the way are out of office, so that's a purple circle with an arrow in it. And another out of office state is actually an indicator that someone is actively on Teams but is away. So you'll see that hollow circle, that hollow white inside the presence indicator, and in this case with the green around the edges. So that's indicating that the person is available, but they do in fact have their out of office set. So a bit of etiquette might be that you may not contact that person if they're not in your direct team. Maybe even if they are in your direct team, maybe they're having some much needed rest, right? So that's just an etiquette call to be made there. This one here with the cross in the middle there, that indicates the person's not signed into any devices, okay? So that doesn't mean they can't get your messages or you can't leave them a voicemail. You can still ring or chat that person, but it's not going to be delivered to any endpoint at that point in time. Another one that sometimes comes up is this status unknown. Now, generally speaking, it will resolve itself and you will see presence shortly after you see that, or it may be a contact that doesn't have presence, doesn't use Teams, that sort of thing. Something really great about presence is that it surfaces itself throughout Microsoft Office applications. So in this example of an email here, I see some presence indications for the people that I have in the to line. Okay, so I can see Paul is currently available, whereas Travis is away. If I hover over those present states, I actually get a contact card which reveals even more information. So in the middle of the slide here, you'll see that I actually have a contact card example. In this case, this is a contact card from Microsoft Teams. The contact cards look slightly different in the different apps. For example, Outlook will look different again to this. But the idea is that it's going to surface additional information about that particular contact. Something else you can do with presence is use this notify when available feature. So what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to tag a particular contact so that when they become available, you get a notification. So the easiest way to do that is from the chat tab, find the person that you want to be notified about, click the more menu, and then select notify when available. So what that's going to do is that once Paul, for example, transitions from a busy state, an away state, into the available state, I'm going to get a little pop-up notification that says Paul is available. So what that's going to be useful for, say for example he was do not disturb, I know he's presenting, I've got something urgent for him, right? But there's no use in me trying to contact him directly now because I know it's going to go nowhere. So what this allows me to do is tag him, as soon as he finishes presenting, goes to the available state, and I know I can grab him right there and then, as soon as he becomes free. So that's the end of the overview section. We're going to now look at the phone system replacement capability. So let's jump right into that. Okay, so how do you call a phone number? So this is just a phone number as you would have in your traditional system. Pick up the phone, dial the number. Okay, so to do that in Microsoft Teams, we go to the Calls app. We simply punch in the number that we want to dial. We can use the mouse to click those numbers, but it's easier to just use your numbers or number pad on your keyboard to punch those numbers in. So enter the number, hit the call button. It's as simple as that, okay? Now, something just to note here, if you don't see the call button there and the dial pad, you might have it collapsed, okay? So what you want to look out for is this dial a number button, which would be in the place of the call button here, okay? So if you see that, click the dial a number, all right, and that will pop up this dial pad. If you don't see it at all, there may be something misconfigured and you'll need to talk to your IT department or have a look into that. Same again from the mobile app. This example is a iPhone, okay, but very similar in an Android. There's a slight difference and I'll point that out shortly. Okay, so go to the Calls app. All right, then select the new call button. All right, that's going to open this new screen here. Again, simply type in the phone number that you want to dial and then hit the call button. Okay, so what about calling a contact within your organization? Now, this is slightly counterintuitive. I'm going to suggest to you to use the chat app to actually make that happen. Now, there's reasons for that, and I'll point those out later on in the slide deck. But just trust me that the chat app is probably the easiest way to start even an audio call, okay? And a lot of communications with people are going to start with a chat anyway, right? So it's a central place to go and start any type of communication with an internal person. Okay, so go to the chat app. Right, once you're in there, you may have a past conversation. You may be able to find that nice and quickly. You could jump there, start from that. Or you can hit the new chat button, and that's going to bring up a search box, and you can just simply type in the person's name, and that will bring you to the chat window, whereby you can use this new audio call button at the top right here to make that into an audio call right off the bat. Okay, so how do we do that on a phone? Okay, in this case, we're using an Android example. And I'll point out this difference I mentioned just before. So open the Calls app, spot the difference here. We have a floating new call button here in this case. On the iPhone it was up the top right. On an Android it's floating at the bottom right. Okay, so click that. Right, now in this case, rather than using the dial pad, we're going to use this People Search button. Okay, so we click over to that tab. Now we can just type in the name of the person that we want to contact within the organization. Okay, search the person, and then click on their name. And that will bring you into, again, like the desktop chat example, that'll bring you into the chat window here on the mobile phone. But again, we can go straight to an audio call by clicking the phone button. Now, if we want to find additional information, like for example, we want to call Paul's mobile rather than do an internal to internal call or a Teams to Teams call, in other words, we can click this More button, okay, and then View Profile, and that's going to bring up this, essentially the contact card equivalent of the mobile phone. So you can see there we have a couple of additional numbers that we can call. Okay, so we can select those directly to make calls to those numbers, or we could just click the phone button and make that Teams to Teams call. What about in the other direction? So receiving a call. So here you can see a couple of examples, one mobile and one desktop. So mobile phone looks very similar to an incoming mobile call, except for the fact that in this case on the Android we have a purple accept button. On the iPhone, you have a similar experience to what you would expect for a mobile call. Okay, on the desktop, we receive these, what we call toast notifications. Okay, they typically pop up in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so they'll pop up and you'll be able to answer the call directly from that toast notification. If you choose the decline button in either case, we're going to send that caller directly to voicemail. So once you accept that call, I'm going to show you through sort of what the in-call experience is, okay? So we have a mute, unmute button where you can expose the dial pad for situations where we're talking to an auto attendant and it's asking us to press 1 for this, 2 for that, okay? We can expose the dial pad there. We have this more options menu as well. We've got hold and transfer options there, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail shortly, okay? Right within the call, we can manage our device settings. We don't have to go back into the main settings page that we started off with. Okay, we can do that in real time. Say, for example, we've got the wrong headset or wrong device selected. We can go and do that on the fly in the call. Okay? We can manage participants, for example, adding one. Okay, this is going to bring up this other menu to the right-hand side. And you can see we have 2 participants in there right now. Say, for example, we wanted to add someone. We simply just type their name or punch in their phone number if we're making a phone call out to the telephone network. So mobile phone, similar experience, different form factor here. So we have a mute, unmute. We've got the devices option, probably more relevant to mobile because we may want to switch to our mobile's built-in speakerphone, or we may have Bluetooth devices connected to it that we want to switch to as well. We can do that live in the call on the fly. We have the dial pad, again. We've got the more options menu. We have the hold and the transfer options. We can transfer directly or consult like we can in the desktop, and that's going to just bring up this search window where we can find the person or type the number that we want to call. We can manage participants. Again, we can search for the person or type in the number to add them to the call. So looking at hold in a little bit more detail. So if you want to put the call on hold, you click that more options menu, you select hold, and that's going to switch you over to this window here where you see the resume button. So when you're ready to go back to the call, simply hit the resume button and that will take you back to the call. So now we're going to take a look at transfer and consult then transfer. So in the example of a transfer, we again go to the more options menu, we select transfer. that is going to pop up this search window where we can look for people or type numbers. Okay, and then we simply hit the transfer button, and that's essentially a blind transfer. That means it's going to transfer the call and hang your call up immediately. Okay, now just take a quick note of the purple transfer button, okay, and check the difference out. So right here you can see there's an arrow to the right hand side. Now this indicates that the person has multiple numbers or destinations that we can transfer to. If you simply click transfer, that will go to Teams or as an internal call. Okay. If you want to transfer it to a specific number or other destination, such as voicemail or the person's mobile phone, we can also do that. Okay, we just need to click that arrow and select the particular destination that we want. Right, comparing all that to consult then transfer. So very similar, more options menu. This time we select the consult then transfer. Again, we search for the users or type the number of the transfer destination. Okay, but in this case we have a consult button. Now what that's going to do is that's going to bring up a chat window by default. So we can chat to the person, ask them if they want to take the call, or we could escalate that chat to a call. Okay, so we can click the call button if we think that's going to be faster, or maybe we're not getting an instant response on chat. Okay, once we've spoken to the person or they've agreed to talk to whoever we have on the line, we can choose to finish the transfer by selecting the transfer button. Okay, if we wanted to go back to the call and not complete the transfer, we just select the stop consulting button and that will take us back to the call. Next, we're going to look at some call answering settings. So these are some personal settings that you can configure yourself to manage what happens when you receive an inbound call. So things like forwarding and simultaneously ring, and allowing your team to answer your call, things like that. So by default, typically you're going to have this set up in this way. So calls are going to ring you. They'll also ring no one else. If unanswered, they'll go to voicemail, and that will happen after 20 seconds. This is generally the default when you're set up as a phone system user. But we can configure this in various different ways. So we can ring other destinations at the same time. A good example of that is I might want to also ring my mobile phone. We can choose different if unanswered destinations. So I may want to ring my team, for example, if I do not answer. I may want to configure a longer timeout destination. Now I think 10 seconds is probably too low in my opinion. You can try it yourself, but I find that by the time a call comes in, I finish my train of thought or finish the sentence I was writing, 10 seconds is already gone. It's not enough time to grab the call. I think 20 seconds is a good default, but you may want to increase that depending on your need. If you choose to send a call to a call group and you haven't got one defined, this is going to open automatically. If you have already defined one, you hit the little pencil button there and you can edit your group. So you can search for someone in your organization and add them to that list. You can set to ring those people all at the same time or in the order you define above. If you set the forward my calls option, that's going to send calls directly to the forwarding destination. In the previous example, this is ringing two destinations. So we're ringing Teams and something else. When we forward a call, we're forwarding that directly out. We don't see it in Teams, we send it directly to the forwarding destination. So an example of that might be, let's send all calls directly to voicemail. Or I'm on the road a lot and I have bad cell phone coverage, data's not an option, I want to send all of my incoming calls to my DDI straight to my mobile phone number. Okay, so you can do that by setting forward my calls. But arguably, simultaneously rings probably a better option, right? Because it can do both and you don't have to be switching between the two. Okay, something else worth doing is setting up a personal voicemail greeting. Okay, out of the gate, you're going to get a announced voicemail. Okay, it's also going to try and announce your name. Now, it's pretty good at getting that right, but it doesn't get all names correct. Okay, and a personally recorded greeting is much better in my opinion, much more professional. Okay, so record your voicemail greeting. So you can do that by hitting the configure voicemail button below the settings we've just been talking about. You hit the recorded greeting button. What that's going to do is it's going to make a phone call to an automated attendant, and it's going to step you through a setup wizard, essentially. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll end up pressing 2 to configure your greeting. You'll press 1 to configure your standard greeting, and then optionally you can press 2 to configure a out of office greeting. Okay, so that will be the greeting that gets played to people when you have an out of office set in Outlook. Okay, so if you want to differentiate the voicemail messages, you can do that in that way. Something else that's going to be probably useful to you is call history. So the ability to see, any incoming or outgoing call. So you can do that from the Calls app. Go there, select History, and you can see here we have a list of all incoming and outgoing calls. And we can take actions against those with the menu. Okay, so the ... menu, click that, and we can, for example, call them back. If you want to collect your voicemail, you can do that in a number of ways. First is from Microsoft Teams. So again, from the Calls app, we select the voicemail tab there. Okay, we select the voicemail that we want to listen to, and then we hit the play button. Okay, and you'll notice to the right-hand side there, you may have voicemail transcription turned on there. So that's going to try and transcribe the voicemail message that was received into text. Now, it's not always perfect. It can be a source of humor. Don't take it for gospel, but it's going to give you an indication roughly of what that message might be about, okay? But do listen to the message as well. The other place you can collect your voicemail, and I don't have a slide around this, but it's pretty self-explanatory. This voicemail will also be delivered into Outlook as an email, and it will be attached to that email as an audio file. So you can simply open that audio file from the email and listen to the voicemail message that way. Something to note here is that voicemails contained within Outlook or in Teams are one and the same, right? So that means if I delete it from Teams, it gets deleted from Outlook. If I delete it from Outlook, it gets deleted from Teams, okay? So you don't have to manage that in two places, but just bear in mind, if you want to file a voicemail, don't delete it in Teams, okay? You need to file it in Outlook. Okay, next up, we're going to look at contacts and how you manage them in Microsoft Teams. So we do that from the Calls app, and then we select the Contacts tab, okay? There's a couple of different contact types. So one is a phone-based contact. So that is essentially a phone number that you have assigned to a contact. So a typical phone number, right? The next contact type is a Teams-based contact, okay? So Teams enabled. Now that can be an internal person, or it could be another person in another organization who also uses Teams. Okay, so you'll see the difference with a Teams enabled contact. They have a whole bunch of other options associated to them, right? So we can start a chat, an email, an audio call, or a video call, and we can do other things like screen sharing and things like that once we've started that call. Okay, you see there's a more options menu here. Now, the key use for that from the Contacts tab is, does the user have other phone numbers associated to them? If you want to call those numbers, you'll need to go and get those numbers from the more options menu. So we'll show you how to add a contact in Microsoft Teams. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll hit the Add Contact button. All right, search for the contact by name is one option. Okay, so an internal user, we might search them by name, find them, resolve them, select them, and then add them. The other option is adding a contact that doesn't exist within the organization. So for example, here I'm adding the coffee shop. Okay, that's not a contact within the organization, although it should be. Once we've typed the name, we select the add button. Okay, and that brings us in this additional information window. So really, when we're adding a contact of this type, we can only add the name, the company, and the title, as well as the phone number. So it's quite limited. So I'd typically recommend, if you're going to add a contact from Microsoft Teams, keep it to internal users, because they're already populated with rich information, right? And you can search them and it's nice and quick. Whereas in the external contact example here, where I'm adding the coffee shop, there's really limited information I can add, okay? So the recommended approach that I use is using Outlook to add other contacts, external contacts, really. Okay, so if you're not familiar with how you add a contact in Outlook, you do it from the Contacts tab down there in the bottom left. You go New Contact. That's going to bring up this New Contact window. And you can see there I can add a heck of a lot more information about the contact when I compare that to what I can do in Microsoft Teams, okay? So this is really the best approach, I believe. Okay, so save and close that. Our Outlook contacts will surface within Microsoft Teams. It may take a little bit of time before they show up after you've added them, but they will just automatically show up on that contacts list, okay? So finding a contact. So some key points here, and this goes back to why I said that the chat tab was the better place to start a conversation with an internal person. Reason being that from the contacts tab here, I can't search any internal contact that I haven't already added to my contacts list, okay? So if it's not someone that you communicate with regularly, you're going to need to first then go and add them as a contact, and then they will be searchable, okay? So it's just easier to go to the chat app if we're wanting to initiate a conversation with an internal person, okay? So the key points here, right, is that this contact list is for people we have explicitly added to our contacts list, okay? We're not going to see people here that we haven't added, okay? So that can be, we've added the contact from Microsoft Teams, or we've added them from Outlook, as I've just shown you right here, okay? So that's the key thing. So once we have a contact list, okay, how do we find people? So we either scroll the list, okay? If it's a massive list, that might be difficult. I typically use search. It's just faster. Jump into the search box, hit their name, okay? So easy as that. If there are contacts we are in regular communication with, we can actually add them to the speed dial. So once you've found a contact you want to add to speed dial, click the More menu and simply just click Add to speed dial. So what that's going to do is from the speed dials tab within the calls app, we're going to see them and we can quickly get access to them and make calls to them in chats and that sort of thing. So that brings us to the end of the phone system PABX replacement capabilities of Microsoft Teams. Now quickly, as I said, we're going to look at online meetings because chances are that's going to be something that's going to be useful to you if you're already using Microsoft Teams as your phone system. So an overview of Microsoft Teams meetings. It supports voice, video, screen sharing, whiteboarding. We can present videos with system audio, PowerPoint presentations. There's all sorts of things we can do in there. One of my personal favorites is in-meeting notes. I can pop out a little menu to the side and take notes within the meeting. I can also record meetings, and that gets stored within the meeting itself in Teams, and I can always go back to that and reference it. Okay, there's no files to download or anything like that. It's just there. Okay, so we can get to it anytime we like. So how do you schedule a meeting? Couple of ways. So firstly, you can schedule that from Teams. Okay, so go to the calendar app. Okay, select new meeting, and that will bring up this meeting invite window. Okay, some call outs. Okay, so we can search rooms that exist within our organization. If we want to create a reoccurring meeting, there's a little repeat button in the top right above the dates. Okay, so hit that if you want to do a reoccurring meeting. And then key to a meeting invite, we obviously want to invite some people. So we can invite people from our contacts by just typing their name, or if we haven't invited them to a meeting before, we might have to type their full email address to add them to that meeting. Okay, once you've done that and filled out all the other relevant information, you can hit the schedule button and you're done. That's going to send a meeting invite via email to all of the people that you've added. The other way to do it is directly in Outlook, which is probably my preferred approach because it's just easier and faster, I find. Okay, so from the calendar app in Outlook, we select that, we go New Teams Meeting. Okay, that's going to open this meeting invite window, very familiar. But it's going to add in the Teams join information for you. Okay, so now you just schedule the meeting as you would normally schedule it and send that out. When people want to join that meeting, they simply just click the Join Microsoft Teams Meeting link, or there may be dial-in conferencing numbers available to you. So if you have that, there's a number there you can dial and enter a conference ID. Okay, so that's one way. If you're a Microsoft Teams user, as you probably will be, or even your customers, you can use this Join Online button right within the Outlook reminder window. Okay, and last but not least is you can join a meeting directly from Teams. So again, go back to the Calendars app, find the meeting from the schedule view that you want to join, click on that, and then hit the join button. If the meeting's already active, okay, you're going to get a little pop-up toast notification that tells you that someone started the meeting, or if you're in the calendar view, you're going to see a join button right from the scheduler. Right, and just quickly, we're just going to cover off this idea of quiet hours and days, which exists on the mobile apps. Now, this is really useful because, you know, a mobile phone is tethered to us a lot of the time. It's probably sitting next to our bedside table at night, and we don't want to get interrupted outside of work hours necessarily. Okay, so this quiet hours and days features allows us to control that on the mobile phone. All right, so to configure this, click the hamburger menu to the left there. Okay, then select Settings, then Notifications. Okay, and it's going to bring up this window here. So now we select quiet hours from the very top there, and that will bring us into this next window, which is going to allow us to set the times of day and days. So we may set 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. as quiet hours, and then we might set Saturday and Sunday as quiet days. Okay, so go ahead and set that up. I really recommend you do that for the mobile device. All right, so that brings us to the end. Thank you very much for listening. If you want some further resources, Microsoft's actually got some pretty good user help stuff online. That's that first link. And also feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel there and my Microsoft Quick Tips videos series. Also feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, Twitter, or on my blog ucgeek.co. Thank you again for watching. It's been a pleasure.